All right, what's going on, guys? I hope everyone's having a great day. It's raining the last 2 days, so fingers crossed them Steelhead are running. I'm pretty confident that they are. If they're not, I don't know what their deal is because there's enough water now for them to run. So hopefully they'll be moved up into the creeks real soon. But I was fortunate enough to get out with my buddy on Tuesday, my buddy Nick on Tuesday, and we did a little bit of fishing in the surf, which is fishing directly in the lake for the steelhead. The steelhead have been ready to come in for a while now, and they've just been staging at the mouths, waiting to come in. A lot of the mouths have been blocked up. There really hasn't been enough room for them to get through. So they've all just kind of been stacked right up there at the mouth. So we went out and we fished for them. It's mid-October already. It's steelhead season. It's time to get at them. So it's kind of a little bit of a last-minute trip, but we made it down. It was my first time fishing the surf for steelhead. I didn't exactly know what I'm doing, so what I'm going to talk about basically is kind of the rig and stuff, and how we were able to find success. Um, but at first, I started off with two bait fish patterns. One was an olive back with a white belly, just a little minnow imitation. And then I threw a black leech off of that, and I was just kind of casting it, stripping it back. And I kind of realized that nobody else around me was doing that, and they were having some success. It was slow in the morning. We got there like right at daybreak. Not too much was happening, and it was slow. And I noticed everyone else was throwing some babbers, and I bought some bobbers at Walmart in the morning. I left them in my car though, and I didn't really want to relinquish my spot in line. It was fairly crowded, so I bummed them off my buddy Nick, and I stole this one. I'm keeping it hostage, so this one is now mine. So if you're watching this, this is mine. Um, but so the rig was kind of specific on what they wanted, and so eventually I swallowed my pride. I put the old bobber on, and began casting. So before I get completely into the rig, I was using this pink thingamabobber, and I'm using 8 pound Seagar STS, for trout and steelheads, a fluorocarbon, really strong. I was really happy with it. I didn't. I had one fish break me off, and I think that's because I like strip set into it. Um, I really wasn't ready for the fish, and I just kind of like ripped into it, so it snapped the line that way. Um, but other than that, I was really happy with it. I know some guys around me were having issues with some line breaking, but I wasn't, so I'm fairly happy with that. But so to get into the rig itself, so I had the thingamabobber, and I was fishing two flies. They were calling it the Jeff Special because the guy next to us, his name was Jeff, and he was absolutely ripping into fish. It's basically a cream blood dot, with an orange hotspot as the dot, and they were fishing two of those. I was fishing two of those, um, in with about, I don't know, like 12 inches of line between the two. I always tie my flies on a tag, so I tie a double surgeon's knot, or loop or whatever, and so I use the bottom tag. I snip the top tag, use the bottom tag, and that's how I attach my fly rather than putting them in line. I'm pretty sure everyone else was fishing in line, but it's up to you. It's personal preference. I personally am used to fishing a tag, so I like it that way. But so I was fishing an identical rig, to the people next to me, and the people next to me were having success, and I wasn't. And so, Nick and I kind of were like, "Hey, what's going on?" Like, we were using the same flies. Our bobbers are exactly the same. Like, there's no color difference. Not that I really thought that mattered. Um, but we still weren't catching fish. So, kind of our next thing was to adjust our depth, our shot pattern, and our depth. So, the first thing with depth is obviously the distance between your bobber and your bottom fly. Obviously, if it's only that deep, you can only cover, was that like 16 inches of water. Um, if the fish is in that top 16 inches of water, it's either going to have to swim up to your fly, which they're not gonna unless they're super aggressive, or you need a wave that drop it all the way down to the fish, which again, not really going to happen. So we kind of played with line depths, and whatnot until we, were either hitting bottom every now and again, because remember, we're fishing in the lake, so the waves are going up and down, and so your rig is actually covering multiple depths. But you don't want it too long to where you're snagging the rocks and you're getting stuck in the rocks. On your way back up, your bobber you'll see your bobber kind of sink below like a take, but it's not a take. It's stuck in the rocks and it's jammed below. And you also don't want it too short because the fish really aren't going to raise in the water column. So one, just figuring out the total distance. I think it ended up being like 3.5 feet or something like that. Somewhere around there was the depth, the correct depth to get them down. And on top of that, it was shot pattern. And I started, and you'll see in my diagram, I started with a number 2 shot. I'm using Umpqua split shot. I think it's tungsten. I fished a number 2, about 4 inches below my bobber. And about 4 inches below that, I had a number 4 shot. And that was above my first fly, those two. And then I had my fly, which was a bead-headed sucker spawn. And I don't think it wasn't a tungsten bead, it was a brass bead. I was bumming flies off a Nick. I didn't have any eggs in my box. So that was a bead head, brass bead, egg fly, so there's really not too much weight to that. You know, egg yarn tends to float. And then I had another fly. And so I noticed I started off not fishing a split shot between the two flies. And the bottom fly didn't have a bead, it was completely unweighted. And so I noticed I still wasn't catching fish. You know, I kind of, you know, because as the guy next to me would bring in a fish, I kind of noticed the distance between his bobber and his bottom fly, and mine was the same. And so that didn't work out for me. So then finally I'm like, you know, maybe I'm not getting my fly down. You know, it's an unweighted pattern. You know, in the lake there's kind of an undercurrent from getting pushed back after the waves bounce off the shore. So that fly kind of can flick up in the current and not be in the zone. You know, you got to be in the zone, you got to be in front of the fish. And so I finally put a split shot down between the two flies. And then it was lights out. I was catching fish from there, hooking them mostly. I lost a lot, but definitely that was the way to go. And like I said, when you're, you know, if I didn't have that that split shot between the two flies, then it wasn't working for me. Every now and again I'd get lucky, or something would happen, but for the most part, as soon as I put that shot on, it was way more consistent. And you know, if I had the wrong depth between my bottom fly and my bobber, because it would kind of adjust on itself, slip out and whatnot. If I had the wrong distance there, I also wouldn't catch fish. So you know, that was just the rig that worked. You know, hopefully this helps. And if you're getting out there in the surf, there's still gonna be fish, you know, staging at the mouth. So there's, even though there's fish in the creeks, there's still plenty of opportunities to fish the beaches and stuff to have plenty of success. So I encourage you to apply this technique, and this is even some information that can apply to when you're throwing indicators in the streams. So I hope this helps, and please feel free to comment anything down below, any questions or whatever. Always feel free to send me pics of fish. Be careful when you say that, but I'd love to see your guys' success and whatnot. And enjoy your time on the water, and hopefully we'll all be out there doing some steelheading real soon.